we had a reseller that was a radio station that sold a $500 campaign to a home and garden store in Portland, Oregon, and Al's Home and Garden. And we went live with a $500 campaign over the weekend, and they basically, I think we got 800 website visitors plus within a 48-hour period, which was a couple things about that. One, it was a massive spike in their website visits, not even including walk-in. And then the cost per website visitor was way lower than what was available to them on Google, and the scale wasn't there either. Not many people search for home and garden in Portland, Oregon. So it taught us a couple things. One, people do see an ad and respond, and two, you can create intent on TV where the number of people searching for home and gardens might be 100 in a given day in Portland, Oregon. And I'm making this up. And all of a sudden we can drive 800 visitors to their website in a 2-day period at a very cost-effective rate. So it told us it was a big aha moment. And we've seen that play out across categories, from D2C to gaming to you name it. People watch TV. They have their phone or device in their hand 95% of the time. They see something they're interested in, and either they'll pause it or wait for the commercial, and then they'll go and they'll do whatever it is that they want to do. Go check out Al's Home and Garden.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the E-Marketing Association. Run a bunch of other businesses as well, a full-service agency called Did It, my own brand, a couple of nonprofits. And the common thread across all of them is digital marketing in particular. So I'm super excited to be chatting with Jason Fairchild, who's also been in digital marketing a long, long time in a couple of iterations. And most recently is the CEO and co-founder of tvScientific. So why don't you first mention what the catalyst was for you deciding you're going to do this all over again and now in CTV?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation. I started my advertising career back in 1998 with the pioneer, the inventor of the paid search model, a company called GoTo.com. And that was an incredible experience for obvious reasons. We ultimately went public and were acquired by Yahoo. And then fast forward, towards the end of a 12-year run at OpenX, where I was a co-founder and chief revenue officer, I started thinking about what the next wave was. And it was pretty clearly TV, and started getting exposed to it in various ways. And it became clear to me that unlike cable TV, you could actually leverage programmatic infrastructure to connect the dots between a TV ad delivered and a purchase made. And that opened up basically the thesis of the company, which is, hey, what if we do for TV what we did for search back in the day? Democratize access through self-serve, but more importantly, enable marketers to buy on a performance basis, cost per website visitor, cost per sale, ROAS, et cetera. That was the kind of founding moment, if you will. And interestingly, I called Bill Gross, who's the founder of the paid search business model at Idea Lab, an incubator in Pasadena, and pitched him that thesis. And within 15 seconds, he goes, yep, that must be done. And shortly thereafter, we had our seed round of funding led by Idea Lab. So it's sort of, in many ways, an extension of what I spent a bunch of years doing early in my career, and felt like this, there's never a final frontier, but as the next frontier of advertising, this seemed like an obvious fit.
Well, that's where we first crossed paths. We were the first company to create a bid alert system for GoTo.com.
Wow.
And so this was before there was an API. So we used to go in through the front door until the API was there. And so, very familiar with that. Built an entire platform there over the years. And of course, with certain players in the game, decided that wasn't the place we would end up necessarily, but very familiar with all the plumbing. And I agree, CTV has a tremendous amount of promise with addressability and all the other elements that are there now that didn't exist back when the only choice you had as a video ad buyer when I was at McCann Erickson or J. Walter Thompson was would you like the soap operas or during the news, right? Or maybe sports.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to like, for those folks who are not aware of all the different layers of targeting that are intrinsic, and then the secondary data sources that you can pipe in when you're buying CTV. Why don't you go down that rabbit hole a little bit and explain why that's so powerful?
Yeah. So the CTV or streaming services are delivered over the internet, and obviously, the ad-supported ones leverage programmatic infrastructure. So an ad avail is sent to an SSP where it's then federated out to bidders, just like any other programmatic ad is. And in that way, you get a lot of information. You get ultimately information that can help you resolve down to the household level. And because it's programmatic infrastructure, you can also attach or append data, whether it's credit score data from third parties or first party data. Everything you can do in programmatic advertising, you can do almost exactly the same targeting wise in CTV. So, for example, if you want to target a certain credit score or a certain income level or a certain micro geo or a certain program, you can do all of those things, which of course you can't do in linear TV. And the reason that's important is this micro targeting allows you to obviously uh, target and deliver ads to first party audiences that you want to target very specifically, but it can also inform performance algorithms. So you can do certain types of targeting and see how it performs, and then evolve that targeting based on that feedback loop to buy different shows or different day parts or different target different frequencies or whatever the variable may be. And increasingly, that's all basically automated through algorithms at this point. So whereas in linear, you might be able to buy based on, I'm making this up, 10 dimensions, you can literally buy in thousands of dimensions, which are on CTV, which sounds overwhelming, and it is, but it's all automated. So we don't have to pull those levers ourselves. It's all done through algorithmic buying.
So, other than perhaps late night infomercials, most people think of TV as a mid to upper funnel advertising vehicle, but I know you guys have made huge strides in turning it into a performance centric vehicle. And I guess the pipes that allow you to take actions and tie them back to specific impressions and specific buys is a big part of knowing for sure that these ad campaigns work. So, I'd love you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think we've all intuitively believed that that TV works, quote unquote works. I mean, I can still recite TV jingles from the 70s, so it definitely sears into the brain. I think because there's been a lack of information on its ability to drive lower funnel activity, we just assumed it was a brand building medium. So I remember that one of the first aha moments when we were early on in the journey is we were going live with whatever advertisers we could get a hold of, and we had a reseller that was a radio station that sold a $500 campaign to a home and garden store in Portland, Oregon, and Al's Home and Garden, and we went live with a $500 campaign over the weekend, and they basically, I think we got 800 website visitors plus within a 48-hour period, which was a couple things about that. One, it was a massive spike in their website visits, not even including walk-in. And then the cost per website visitor was way lower than what was available to them on Google, and the scale wasn't there either. Not many people search for home and garden in Portland, Oregon. So it taught us a couple things. One, people do see an ad and respond, and two, you can create intent on TV where the number of people searching for home and gardens might be 100 in a given day in Portland, Oregon. And I'm making this up, and all of a sudden we can drive 800 visitors to their website in a 2-day period at a very cost-effective rate. So it told us it was a big aha moment, and we've seen that play out across categories, from D to C to gaming to you name it. People watch TV. They have their phone or device in their hand 95% of the time. They see something they're interested in, and either they'll pause it or wait for the commercial, and then they'll go and they'll do whatever it is that they want to do. Go check out Al's Home and Garden or buy a Domino's pizza or whatever. So we've seen this play out because we instrument all the advertiser websites with pixels, or if it's an app with postbacks, so that we can see when such and such ad is delivered, a Domino's pizza ad is delivered to a household. We know if someone then bought a pizza, did it come from the same household within a certain period of time? So seeing that feedback loop is eye-opening for sure, and it's just confirmed. I think what we all intuitively believed is TV works, but it works a whole lot more than we thought, both in top of funnel awareness, but also people taking action.
Yeah, it's a great example. I remember when Did It first made its transition into not just buying search. And one of the first things we noticed is that when we went out and bought some of these more engaging video-based ad units, wherever we were buying them, we would see surges in search query behavior on the brand as well, right? So between the site visitation, which is direct navigation, and the search query spikes for the brand, those were two reinforcing data points where we knew that the video advertising was working, right? So it's interesting you used a very similar story to explain how you're able to demonstrably see you put money here and high quality visits come out on the other side. So I'd love to pivot into a related question, which is obviously there's lots of different types of content you can advertise on, right? And as far as like linear real-time TV watching, that's really been boiled down to primarily news and sports. Like, most of the other stuff is time shifted or streamed. But I'd love to talk about the sports category, the news category, and other categories, and how that's maybe bubbled up to where certain industry categories that are performance-minded, like sports betting, for example, might say, oh, this is the perfect combination of context and audience, right? So when those two things overlap together, seems like that'd be really powerful.
We just say we have a philosophy of sort of follow the scientific method. And for like a sports advertiser, what that usually means is they'll come up with a hypothesis. We should advertise to people that are, either before an NFL game, I'm making this up, before or during an NFL game, because these are the people that are likely to buy. So of course that's easy to test. You run it and you measure the ad exposure to outcome, and away you go. And we also emphasize the need to come up with different hypotheses and also discover. So we will, at the same time, for almost every advertiser, we will take a 10 or 20% of the budget and follow the data. So we might buy use ACR data, for example, for people that are heavy sports watchers and hit those households, or other types of targeting. Maybe it's demographic, or maybe it's third-party data around credit card transactions, whatever it might be. So we love to experiment, and often the experimentation will discover or uncover pockets of superior performance to even running in game for in this example. But it's every marketer is going to find this. We had early on one of those direct-to-consumer stock companies, and we did a test campaign with them. And we did this explore part of it because they had their hypothesis on where to buy, the demographics, et cetera. And then we did the explore, and we found a pocket where Hispanic programming actually delivered 2 or 3x the ROAS as the core of their campaign. And we were all excited. Went back to the marketer and said, "Great news, because this is a scalable channel, blah, blah, blah. It's 2 or 3." And they said, "No, that's not our customer." And unfortunately, it was a failed experiment because they were pretty stubborn in that they believed their own idea. They drank their own Kool-Aid more than following the data. So in that case, it didn't work out. But we just, in those situations, go find another customer. So we believe heavily in following the data, and I think most marketers are going to say, hey, if I can find a pocket of a new audience for my product or service based on the feedback loop data, that's gold, because I didn't know that going in before. And I think that's really valuable. And you can do that on streaming TV advertising where you couldn't do it elsewhere.
Yeah, I'd love to, go one layer deeper on that. Obviously, once you empower an AI type technology or machine learning technology to surface those sort of unknown audience segments that you didn't have in your media plan necessarily, how does the system go through that process of lookalike modeling for people who are not familiar with lookalike modeling? How does it, learn where the other pockets are?
We do, basically we have a 20-person data science and product team, and they will build clusters of lookalike households because unlike maybe Facebook where it's at the individual level, these are much more mapped to households. And there's a lot of data about each household. So you can do, once you have a seed file, let's say you upload a customer file, for example, a known customer file, you can then look for commonalities across those households and then build lookalike clusters based on, you know, I'm making this up, 25 dimensions that are common among those households and go find another 100,000 or a million households just like them. So it's heavy in data science. None of that is earth-shatteringly new. It's just new applied to TV.
Absolutely. So the part of that feedback loop is speed of engagement with the brand, right? And so is there any data about how many people engage with the big screen while holding the small screen in their hand and the extent to which they immediately get curious about something they see on the big screen?
It's a good question. I can think of anecdotes in different categories where, for example, a longer consideration set, I'm making this up, a mattress, you'll definitely see a spike in the first, 24 hours or even 12 hours, but the curve is actually pretty long where if it's a free to play game, and I'm making this up, a Monopoly Go kind of game where you don't have to pay anything, it basically spikes. The whole thing is over, mostly over 80% over in the first 24 hours.
Right.
And most of that is in the first hour. So it really is sensitive to what the product offering is. Because you may, if you see a Domino's pizza ad, you may want, I'm hungry now, and then boom, you do it right then. You for free gaming, it might, shit, I can play while I'm watching TV, watching a football game or whatever it is. Whereas a mattress, you may see the ad and then come back to it a day later, and then you tease all that out for marketers and because they might say, well, they would have come anyway. Um, and we just tease all that out through advanced incrementality studies, and we have multiple flavors, but it's kind of the gold standard in terms of figuring out the discrete combination contribution of any one channel to answer those questions for marketers. And then they can say, okay, it's 44% incremental. That means then they can do their CAC analysis and weight it appropriately.
So one of the things I always share with Did It clients as well as with the Did It team is that you want the most leverage possible when it comes to going out and buying media. Meaning everything else needs to be super efficient, right? You need to have the right creative at the right time against the right audience, and so that means that bad creative can tank the campaign even more quickly than the wrong audience can, and that then layers into this idea of, okay, I want to get the right frequency and I want to make sure I don't have burnout. And so I find that a lot of other agency folks that we end up running across as we're pitching, they're not refreshing creative enough and they're not putting enough emphasis on creative. They're thinking it's all about the audience. So of course, you're not in a position to necessarily go back and say, by the way, guys, your creative sucks. Or by the way, we haven't seen any new creative in 3 months. But in reality, in order for everybody to win, you need to have that interplay between the getting the right message and the right creative and the right offer, not just the right audience at the right time. So how do you recommend brands or marketers incentivize the creative teams internally or at agencies to sort of up their game?
First of all, it's a really fascinating problem because creative development is so rooted in basically subjective, our creative types. It's not a data-driven, or it hasn't been a data-driven process. We in these startups, you have to be really clear about what you are and what you're not, and we're not a creative shop. So,
Right.
but we do recognize, and I think it's one of the most exciting frontiers in all of marketing, is the need to optimize creative. And so we've started and just launched an alpha of a product called the Creative Intelligence. And essentially, what it is we've every creative we've ever run as a company, we've done a regression analysis, mapped to the performance criteria for every campaign, and we've basically come up with a list of 10 or 15 of the core elements that are consistent across all campaigns we've ever run, and from a creative point of view. So, for example, this is going to sound really simple, but it's one of the top ones. If you introduce the brand name in the first 6 seconds versus after the first 6 seconds, it's a 25% increase in performance. It's a huge driver. And we have a bunch of these. So it's shocking too when we share that with the brand or the agency that brought the brand. They'd never seen anything like it. So we're like, okay, next. So we're making that available to all our customers, and then the next version of that is a more data science driven version where if you build a commercial and we can tag anything in the commercial, like does the actor have glasses? Yes, no. Is the actor wearing a black shirt versus a blue shirt? Or when did you introduce the brand? Or aspect ratio? How loud is the voiceover? What does what voiceover say? You can put all of that through machine learning and start to basically understand the correlation between key elements of a creative and performance. So our next version of this is going to be basically creating an API where if you run your creative on our platform, we will send you back the scoring of all the elements. So the next version of that creative, you can make the actor have glasses or not have glasses, or make it a male actor versus a female, or vice versa. There's a bunch of different things you can toggle to in a data-driven way, improve your creative towards whatever goal you're looking at. And that could be brand lift as a goal, or it could be sales. The advertiser declares that.
That's amazing. Look forward to watching that evolve, because I do agree that creative can be the thing that makes a difference between a successful campaign and an unsuccessful campaign. So let's talk about guaranteed outcomes, right? I mean, people aren't used to being able to guarantee the outcome of CTV or any video advertising for that matter. They take their best shot, and maybe they've been running YouTube ads or some other form of semi-programmatic or programmatic video. But which industry sectors do you feel like should be most excited about the ability to sort of guarantee outcomes and use CTV as part of their media mix?
Well, I think you start with what is an outcome, and it's an advertiser declared KPI. So it could be a cost per sale or a cost per app install. It could be lifetime value. It could be brand lift. So when we go through this process, we first declare what success look like. What is that KPI? Then for each category, we kind of know at this point what's in range, what we've seen in the past, and what we can expect to see in the future. And if their target KPI, cost per sale, for example, is in range for that product category, then we know we can go out and buy media and likely hit their KPI. And we didn't just stumble into this. Every startup in the early days, we're scrapping. You're trying to figure out the fastest path to revenue. So we started working with affiliate platforms and the brands behind them, affiliate agencies and brands, so we could basically get good at optimizing campaigns ourselves, hands-on keyboard. This is before machine learning even started at the company. And the thesis was, hey, we'll get fast customers, we'll learn on how to optimize on CTV, and then we'll start to automate that, which we've done over the years. And we're so automated at this point that the algorithms take over on all these campaigns, so that there's very little hands-on keyboard work. And we got so good at it at a board meeting not long ago, probably 6 months ago. They're like, look, if you're this good at it and the machine learning roadmap looks like this, and you can tell the performance of an advertiser in the first, like a opening movie weekend, you can tell what's going to happen within the first 3 days. You can tell what the lifetime value of that movie is going to be. Same thing in these campaigns. So we came up with the idea, well, let's just guarantee the outcome. If we're that confident and we can deliver 70 to 80% against the we call it a performance delivery rate against the advertiser declared KPI. Let's make this really easy for advertisers that want to transact in that way and do guaranteed outcomes. So that was probably more than you wanted to know, but that's the detailed explanation.
Well, that's great. So, one of the things that we've noticed, in 25 years of SEM, before we layered on everything else, is that there definitely seems to be, like, I guess I'd call it a brand bonus, right? Because once the SEM ecosystem moved to a yield managed algorithm as opposed to just directly paid bidding, and it took, predicted normalized click-through rate or quality score into account. The brands outperformed, like, for the same exact keyword, and it shouldn't be a surprise, right? That if you're going to buy golf clubs, Callaway is going to do better than Acme Golf Club, right? So there's definitely you end up with essentially a brand discount because of the trust that a person has in a brand and the awareness that a person has in a brand. So to some extent, that's got to ripple forward into CTV as well. So do you find that the other media spending that a person's doing, maybe with outdoor advertising or audio advertising, is that become sort of an assist to you being able to deliver guaranteed outcomes?
Well, I think the answer is yes. The way we try to quantify that for marketers, and if this doesn't answer your question directly, we can try again. But we measure halo impact because we see the path to purchase, ad exposure at a household level to last click from that household to whatever could be from Facebook, could be from Google, could be organic or direct type in. And did they purchase? Did they not purchase with an order ID mapped all the way back to the physical address? We have all that. So
Right.
then we can do analysis that says for a cohort of users that have been exposed to the ad, what is the click-through rate at Google? What is the purchase rate, the dwell time, all that stuff, versus a cohort that has not been exposed to a TV ad. And the halo effect of TV on those other channels is really, really compelling. And then we even break that down by frequency. If they see one ad, what's the the conversion rate difference versus 10 ads? What's the conversion rate difference? And it's material, and that's in the reporting. You can see all of that. What's harder to do, and what we're dying to do, honestly, is do it the other way, which is to understand TV's impact on social, like if you do a campaign and deliver, frequency of 10 on a given household, what's the impact on TV? So that two-way halo impact study is going to be super interesting. We just got to get one of the portals to do it with us, Meta or someone like that, which is not an easy task. But I think what we'll find is that there is halo on pretty much all mediums. Like if someone does national campaign on radio, there's going to be a halo impact on TV and vice versa.
Right. Yeah, well, certainly, I guess the media buyer or media planner's nirvana is understanding that halo incrementality for each channel, including the relative creatives, right? So knowing which creatives are working and which creatives aren't. So we're not quite there yet, but I do agree you guys have made some amazing strides in unlocking the value of the CTV inventory. What else should we be chatting about that marketers and media buyers should know about CTV in general, and you guys specifically, that we didn't touch on yet?
Yeah, well, just reflecting on this conversation, one theme is just how everything is becoming more data driven. And that is a theme in this conversation. I think a macro trend. Some estimates, e-marketers and others, they believe that digital advertising will be 450 billion in 2028. 85% outcome oriented, which is, it's already 75%. So this data-driven approach, and especially if you get into areas like creative that are more nascent, I think it's super interesting. So the thing to know about us is we're like a Ferrari for performance-oriented advertisers, meaning when you get in, you get to see everything. Everything in TV, in my humble view, needs to revolve around radical transparency because you can't click on it. And we've all been trained to do last click attribution, rightly or wrongly. So the trust but verify that the TV ad is driving impact or driving that person to do the Google search in the beginning or to click on the Facebook ad, vitally important. And if I'm a marketer, I don't just believe a dashboard. I want to see the data at the log level. I want to do what through my own company or however it's done through a third party incrementality testing. So I get to true north on does TV drive impact? Yes, no, and if so, how much incremental? I want to know that because then I can scale behind those KPIs. In order to get to that confidence, you have to have the data. There's no trust me, here's your dashboard kind of paradigm that works in my opinion. So we've leaned into that in a huge way with our massive data and data capabilities and data science as a service support, and we're interoperable with anyone a marketer wants to bring to the table, or MMP or incrementality testing service, whatever it is. So it's probably the key difference is think of us as a radically transparent platform that specializes in data in giving marketers the data they need to make well-informed decisions about CTV.
Perfect. Yeah. Another question that popped into my head is, we often think of the construct of demand creation versus demand harvesting, right? And relates to the halo effect and the interoperability, the interaction effects between different media and driving people into a later stage bottom of the funnel behavior. And we find that, when a client asks like, okay, do I need to bid on my brand term, for example, right, in paid search? Well, it gets complicated, right? Because if you're also spending a lot of money doing demand creation, but then you don't harvest that final click, somebody else grabs it, well, you did a lot of spending for nothing. So, I love your scientific method way of thinking that through, right? Like, okay, we don't really know the answer to that, but we can run an experiment and then we can determine exactly how important it is, for example, to do brand bidding versus not doing brand bidding. It depends on competitive conquest, bidders, et cetera, a whole bunch of factors that enter in. But I think, one common data-driven theme that I think is bubbling up in the conversation is, do the experiment and then trust but verify as it relates to dashboards, right?
100%.
In the end, the common theme there is the data. You better have good data if you're going to be making decisions about things that you only have a certain amount of media budget to play with, and then there's human capital, which is also constrained in a lot of these agencies and marketing departments. Final question is really about like where's the sweet spot from a spend level where CTV starts to make sense? Because TV, when I was growing up, was an aspirational medium, right? Like, the auto dealers could afford it. And, here in the New York area, we had some crazy ones like Crazy Eddie, who went out and bought TV, and Tom Carvel and other folks like that they could afford TV advertising. And, there's a lot of medium-sized businesses that are sort of trying to decide, I don't know, should I be doing video advertising? And even B2B, right? Now that you can buy specific people in specific households, like at what point should a person say, you know what? Because I have such laser targeting now, I should be doing CTV. So what are the factors that should tip them into that? I got to add this to my media plan.
Yeah, I think we've done a segmentation analysis around, okay, there's, enterprise, there's top 500 brands that have agencies of record and so forth. And what they care more about is like reach and frequency. I think that'll change over time, but that's kind of what they've been doing for decades. Then there's like call it the mid-market, and that can range from, large growth-oriented, huge advertisers at search and social to brands that sell at CPG. They're in kind of that category. Then there's SMB, and SMB can mean a bunch of things, but the pizza shop and the restaurant in town and so forth. So I think it's a different answer for each of them. We've decided, at least for this phase of our company growth, to focus on kind of right in the middle, not going after the top 500, although we have some, going after the kind of the next 1,000 to 2,000, so long as they have a real performance KPI that they're trying to hit other than reach and frequency. And so the budgets can start at 10,000 a month and kind of go up. For the SMB, we've built the platform as a self-serve, so you can start with $100. From a philosophy point of view, we think there'll be millions of self-serve advertisers in TV like there are in search and social. And we built it for that. We just don't spend a lot of time going after those marketers yet because often they don't have creative. The creative automation right now it's getting better, but it's not, in my view, ready for prime time. Past, almost like a billboard type TV ad that might have some more bells and whistles, but it's essentially that. So I think 3 years down the road, it'll be a totally different answer. But right now, if someone wants to come in and literally a pizza shop, and we have them, they want to spend $500 to advertise within 5 miles of their restaurant, they can do it. We focus on marketers who have much more scalable budgets and can have the ability to spend 100,000 or more a month. And maybe we start with 5 or 10, and then we scale based on the results.
Great. How valuable is it if they come in with a really robust first-party data set of email addresses, potentially SMS, phone numbers, and maybe even postal address information? Does that give you guys the ability to hit the ground running if they've got a customer file?
Yeah, in two ways. I mean, one, retargeting is an incredibly effective, whether you're retargeting a customer list or a website visitor or an SMS number. In some way, they've engaged with the product or service. So retargeting them in a very surgical way is very cost efficient and probably the most effective form of advertising, not just in TV, but also even display ads work for that. We could debate the attribution of display ads separately. So I think it's incredibly effective. And then we can, more importantly, do lookalike modeling on those. Even within a narrow geo, you can do lookalike modeling. So you can expand that audience and prospect based on what's worked for you. So that's a really important lever. Simple things like website retargeting, easy to do and really powerful.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing all these great tips, which apply more broadly than just your platform, but also a great introduction to what you guys are doing.
Thanks for the conversation. I love talking shop.
Sounds good. Look forward to seeing the next iterations of some of your tech.
Thank you.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.